We definitely have to stop being so accessible to people. When we are allowing people to come, back and forth in our life, time and time again, I feel like a lot of times that big heart that we have is something that people are just taking advantage of. People are trying so hard to kind of get whatever it is they need out of you that time and time again we let them come back, we let them do this thing that ultimately just hurts us in the end. And as someone who's had this experience, someone who has kind of always felt like there are people leaving and coming back so easily, these people are always kind of just making us realize that they're not here for a long time. They're kind of just here in the moment. They're taking us for granted, and they're not doing anything real. When someone is trying to do these things and wants to feel better towards you, we have to realize that if they're not making these actions, if these are only things that this person is saying, it says a lot about who they want to be. It says a lot about what they want from us. When people say they didn't intend to hurt us, we have to realize that what did they like actually intend. This is something that I kind of keep asking when we are going through past relationships, past things that have happened. As easy as it is to want someone back, to want someone to be this person, I feel like a lot of times we can't force that. We can't force this person to come back. And when we let them, we all of a sudden have this idea that they've changed. People can change, but I feel like when we rely on this idea that they can so much so, this kind of sets us up for failure. Just because they can, it doesn't mean that they will. And when we're relying on that, that is the biggest thing that I think is going to damage the relationship. Your overall perception is now going to be altered because of this idea you have. You have this idea that they're just going to all of a sudden, become the perfect person or be the perfect, thing. When really that's not always the case. That's not always something that's going to happen. People can change, but it doesn't mean that they will. Just because this person is trying to act different or all of a sudden trying to be this new person for you, it doesn't always mean that's something real. That's something genuine. When we are looking at people and realizing they've changed, it's important to know why they did it and how come. If someone's only changing for you, if someone's only changing for this small thing, we have to realize that this isn't this actual person. They're simply doing it for benefit. This is now conditionalized, and it's something that's going to not last for a long time. When people want to change, when people want to improve, it's something they have to want for themselves before anything else. People aren't able to be proactive, are able to look at themselves and actually say that they want to become a new person, say that they want to be changed, then how are we going to believe anything that they're saying at all? How are we going to believe this person is all of a sudden going to be great and going to treat us right, if last time they didn't do so? If last time they took us for granted and did all these things, why would we let them come back so easily? When we aren't resilient in this sense, we're allowing people to constantly disrespect us time and time again. And that disrespect is going to hurt us. It's going to decrease our value. And when we are letting people come back, I think it's important to know that that is decreasing your value. When someone leaves and says that they can find better, or that, you're not worth their time, or the effort that you're putting in, that is disrespect. And I think a lot of times people say, oh, it's nothing personal, or it's this or that thing, when really it's nothing but personal. How else would you kind of frame when someone treats you this way, or decides to leave? That's a very personal thing to do. And I think getting left and getting abandoned definitely changes your perception on these things. I feel like sometimes people use the excuse of like, it's right person, wrong time. When really I stopped believing in that. I stopped having that idea that it's really something that's going to, destroy a strong foundation, destroy a relationship type of thing. It really comes down to effort at the end of the day, and I think a lot of people don't want to put in that effort. So they start to make excuses, like, if it's the right person, you'll make it the right time. I feel like a lot of people are saying, oh, it's right person, wrong time. We have to realize that you're always going to have ups and downs. You're always going to have obstacles in your life that make it hard to love someone or have a relationship. But being able to get over those things is a testament to who you are going to become, what you want out of that relationship. A lot of times people are saying they need time to kind of be solo and work on themselves. Well, really, why would you not want to work on yourself while still having a partner that is full of love and support to give you time and time again? Someone who's going to reassure you and help you on your solo journey. That is the whole companionship that we are searching for in having a good relationship. If you're going to leave because of these minor issues or that daily, like, life struggles that happen about, we have to know that we're not ready for a relationship. We're not ready for something serious. These serious things that do happen only entail and only restrict us from loving harder. You know, we're supposed to experience hardships together and continue forward. That is what it means when you are committing to someone and you want to have a real relationship. You know, you want to have something that isn't shallow or isn't murky. It's something true. And I think when a lot of people are saying that and they're saying, well, it's just the wrong time, or it's just these, minor things that come up, like moving away or sickness, whatever the thing may be, that happens, but it doesn't mean it's time to shut down. And when people do leave and come back and it continues to be something good, like now, the second time around we are actually locked in, it doesn't mean that right person, wrong time isn't real. It just means that you guys weren't the right person at that time. That's simply it. You weren't acting accordingly, and now you left, and then you matured. That's something that happens to a lot of people. And that maturity is something that you can experience whether you're single or whether you're still with that person. And I think a lot of people are just looking for excuses to leave. Oh, I'm trying to work on myself, or I'm trying to do this thing. How are you going to work on yourself at all if you're not even ready for a relationship? If you're not even, looking for these real things, these real connections that, we're trying to have. And I think a lot of people get very stuck in that. They get very stuck in this mindset of being, kind of lost in their own translation. And I think when we're looking so hard to kind of find love, and we're always, looking at the good side of things, or the good side of these people that are harming us, we're allowing them to kind of treat us however. Just because you want this person so badly, it shouldn't change your own standards, your own values that you have in place. Those are the things that are going to guide you to having a real relationship, guide you to have something that's deeper than yourself. And I feel like when we're relying so much on, the potential, or the things this person says rather than their actions, that's when it, kind of becomes very messy. That becomes something that we kind of can't really listen to, or abide by, because this person is trying so hard to, fool us. And I think letting people back into your life so easily says a lot about your own character and how you view yourself, your own value. This is not a reflection. The people you let into your life can be a reflection of you. When you're letting people come back into your life and you're letting them, do whatever that thing may be, we are now hurting ourselves. We're allowing people to kind of walk all over us. And I feel like a lot of times when we're being, too nice or too forgiving, we have to realize that this is something that will be taken advantage of. This is something that people can see as a weakness, and it will do nothing but affect us, nothing but try to ruin us in the end. When we have to be more strict and more resilient in this sense, this means that we still have love for these people and still care for them, but we're able to realize that at time, isn't something that we should focus on. That relationship or that connection isn't something that's going to give us overall what we want, and overall what we need. You have to put your needs first. A lot of people will tell you it's selfish when really you have to be. What comes in your life and what is important to you, your own definitions, regardless of outside validation or opinions, that is the most important thing. And I think when we're relying too much on other people, when we're relying on someone to come and change our life, we have to change our life for ourselves. There's no one coming to make new differences, or make something happen. It's all on you. And I think when we kind of realize that and we accept that it is all on us, it is all of our perception and all the work that we're putting into these things, it is 100% on us. So when we're being too accessible and we're letting people, come in our life, mess it up, if you let someone come into your room and throw everything around and mess it all up and then leave, and you clean up this mess, you do everything in your power, you finish it, the room's clean, and you open your door and that's that same person, why would you just let them come back? Why would you let them walk back in and do whatever they seem fit? You can believe this person at your door saying, oh, I would never make your room a mess again, or I apologize, but I'll never do that, and they come in and they do it again. And sometimes they'll do it worse. And I think when we are being forgiving, there's a big difference in hope and delusion. And I think a lot of times we can be very delusional when expecting certain people to mature out of thin air, And I think if we want to be better, if we want to be more, strong with ourselves, strong with our character, our standards, those things that are important, we have to build this kind of backbone, this emotional backbone that now supports, the things that we are going through and the things that we, want. Just because you want this person so badly, it doesn't mean that I'm going to compromise who I am or compromise, what they did. If this person can't apologize, if this person can't move on or accept a certain thing that happened, then they're just not for you. And we have to realize that, our worth, our value isn't something up for, interpretation or debate. You know, it's something we work on and we work on and we value for ourselves. And I think when we're being too accessible, we are diminishing that value by the second. We have to stop letting people come back. You know, we have to stop letting people treat us however they want because of whatever is going on in their life. You know, stop making excuses for these people that have harmed you and just live, you know?